Well, we're finally there. She's sounding pretty crisp, pretty badass offhand. So had a few issues I had to deal with. I did take that red wire that went to, this is 1990, so it had the 454 TBI in it. I took that red wire that fed the coil and just clipped the end off it and used that to feed the HEI, and that worked out great. A couple other videos I seen online, they were saying if you had to hook the fuel pump wire up to the tach, which I couldn't make any sense out of that, and it didn't work either. And then I caught a couple videos, they were saying the purple wire with the white stripe was actually regulating the transmission, not the fuel pump. But I went ahead and just hot wired the fuel pump, put it on a switch, so a 30 amp switch and an inline fuse to boot, and that seems to work fine. A couple of people said, oh, you gotta have a relay, to energize it. It energizes just fine when I flip the damn switch to on. I mean, not a big deal. So that worked out all right though. So yeah, wiring wise, that's all I did. I'm throwing everything to the side, wrapping it up underneath the coolant tank there, and just throwing it all to the side. The only thing I kept was the original wire to the alternator. I did that red wire to the HEI, and then that's it. The other three wires on the HEI are the ones that come out the bottom of the distributor itself that you plug into the top piece there. So, and I had some issues the last few days. I'm back to the carburetor that I bought. I had that other carburetor and I thought I was having a problem with it. Well, I was having one problem I couldn't fix with it. I couldn't get both squirters to work when you hit the accelerator pump. I couldn't get that to work. And then I was having a light flooding issue. And then every now and again it'd starve and it wouldn't get enough fuel. And then it'd be flooding again and pushing too much gas out. Well, after monkeying around for the last 3 days, an hour or two a day, because I've been kind of having to hit some work, I put the goddamn fuel regulator in backwards. I figured it out. I finally told the girlfriend tonight, I said, it's like this damn regulator ain't working or something. I flipped it up and looked at the bottom. Some bitch, it's in backwards, man. So that other carburetor wasn't flooding or nothing any more than this one was. I fixed the top plate in this one. I put some some draft tubes out of another top plate in there. Fixed that for them. And just carefully lined it up because it was minus that guide pin. Cleaned up the bottom a little bit because it had that big scuff on it, and it seems to be doing all right. Still got, I got my starter wired up, like I said. My solenoid's up there. That works great because if you're having a problem, you need to rotate your motor. You can leave your key on and just lay a screwdriver across the two left posts. It'll kick your starter in and rotate your motor rather than having to do it down there on the starter. I really like that setup for the starters. But that part worked out pretty good though. And shit, same transmission, same flywheel. The flywheel off the 454 bolted to the back of this 400. Didn't have to change nothing there. These are the same engine mounts that were off the 454. They bolted right onto this 400 small block. That wasn't a problem. That's the starter off the 454. Bolted onto this 400 small block. Didn't have to do nothing there. I got to get a smaller belt here. I'm maxed on my adjustment, and this sucker's howling a little bit. But the other adjustment, the other part's working out great. And then I kind of just pulled some 12 volt stuff off this solenoid right here. Well, that's what I wired my fuel pump to. That's got 12 volts when the key's on. It doesn't spike with the alternator or nothing or dip. It's just 12 volts. So that's what I wired my fuel pump to. That's also what I wired power for to the tach, I think, and a couple other things. And then I used it for the ground side too. But what I did inside was just put a switch on the dash. The top one's the fuel switch, and it's keyed. That solenoid doesn't activate until you roll the key, so then the switch becomes active. So then you turn the switch on, and everybody's like, you gotta have the relay to energize it. It energizes just fine when I flip that switch to on. So I don't understand what the big beef there is. These newer trucks aren't like the older trucks. The older, like 70s trucks, you had all kinds of extra outlets for dimmers and stuff like that. This frickin' thing don't got much for options. So for all my dimmers, I pulled the 5 amp fuse out of the dimmer part there, and then I spade it into the left side of where the fuse was, and I spade it into the right side of where the fuse was, and then put a fuse in it, and then I tagged my extra wires for the dimmers off of that. So that way everything's still going through a 5 amp fuse, plus I threw an extra fuse in the line that I put on there. That worked out pretty good. All the illumination stuff worked out good. I got the blue tint and in those gauges, so you can't really see it at night. And then I just snaked the wire. And this is how this roll-off truck is. The bed's partially up, but if there's not a can on here, the fuel tank's right there. So it is the gray wire out of here. This is the factory wiring harness. I hacked into that gray wire. Just ran a separate power wire. Go through and get a few more zip ties on here and just kind of laced it down through everything else. So that worked out great. No problems there. So literally it's turn the key and activate the fuel pump and light it. Everything went pretty good though, outside of that fuel regulator bullshit. That kind of frustrates me. I wasted a couple days, extra hours in the day fiddling around with the damn thing. So yeah, I roll the key on, activate the fuel pump, hit the key. There's that squawking belt. Piece of soapstone. Shuts it up for a minute anyhow. And dialed in pretty good though. Sounds pretty good. I got to put that cover on that heater core hose over here, so I ain't baking it with the header, but everything seems good, no problems. Yeah, baby, that'll work. So anyhow, that's where we winded up. That's what worked, that's what didn't work. I hooked up manual gauges and bypassed all the wiring, but I didn't dike anything in the stock wiring either, so I still have loaded it up. I should still have a fuel gauge working and something else. I'll have to check that out, but it appears that all the gauges that I didn't hack into are still working. So anyhow, that's where we ended up. Everybody be safe.